Battlefield Hardline came as a surprise to me. In fact, it was a very disappointing surprise. Battlefield Hardline is a game based around cops and robbers. DICE has no involvement with it, and many aspects that made Battlefield 3 unique have been neutered. With that being said, this shouldn't even be a Battlefield game. And if it were to be, it should more or less be an expansion for Battlefield 4 instead of its own game, only that would mean EA gave a crap about something other than money. What a pity. Why do I sound so boring and unenthusiastic about this particular review? Well, I'm putting about as much effort into my commentating as EA put into their beta. I realize this is a beta, but this game feels just like a more amateurish version of Payday the Heist with prettier graphics. I honestly feel indifferent about this title. Visceral Games is developing Hardline, so I honestly don't know whether or not to be happy about it, because Visceral Games, at least in my opinion, has a very shifty track record. Dead Space, Dead Space 2, and Dante's Inferno were perfect, while Dead Space 3, Dead Space Extraction, and Dead Space Ignition are abhorrent. Their track record is split right down the middle, with 6 main games, 3 being good, 3 being bad. So the most we can hope for when the game releases is that maybe we'll get a good Battlefield campaign this time around, although I wouldn't keep your hopes very high. Despite what I just said, this game does have potential given the gameplay elements, or at least the gameplay elements given to us by the beta, the developer at the helm, and the players who play. Unfortunately, we can cross one thing off that list of 3 because on the PC, the lack of communication is frightening. No one wants to work together for some reason, and as a result, the main focus of each game mode is screwed before the game even really begins. I can also say that this game is more difficult than the previous Battlefield games because of a lack of adaptive strategies. In Battlefield 3, when you were arming an MCOM station, there were multiple ways to defend it because the map allowed it. In this game, thanks to the linearity of the maps, there's maybe one of 2 ways you can do that. On top of this, your gun is almost useless thanks to the hit detection problems. I've always had an appreciation for your guns being a last resort in the previous Battlefield games. Unless you were playing Team Deathmatch, the modes presented were based solely off teamwork and the objective. Unfortunately, due to the fact that everyone seems to be frustratingly autonomous and the weapons might as well shoot marshmallows, this doesn't work. Another thing about the weapons, and pretty much everything you unlock in general, you purchase them using cash instead of unlocking them with experience points. Now, in its current form, these things can be bought using virtual money that you unlock by playing the game. However, I can definitely see the game being littered with microtransactions, and if that's true, this game already screwed its 5 out of 5 score before it even released. Now, because this is a beta, I can't comment on the number of weapons or how you can customize them. In the graphical department, Battlefield has always excelled. Battlefield 3 and 4 in particular are some of the best looking and resource demanding PC games out on the market, and they're also very crappy looking console titles. With that being said, Hardline doesn't falter in the slightest. The game looks and feels nice, and the use of motion blur is second to none. Another thing I could commend this game for is the fact that it still runs on an NVIDIA 8800 GT video card in the year 2014. Don't believe a word of these so-called journalism websites that say that this game needs DirectX 11 quality stuff. You can still play in a video card as old as mine and run the game on max settings. This game is optimized very well, and you don't need to spend more money than EA has already bled out of you with this game. Visceral Games decided to give Battlefield Hardline a slightly more cartoony visual style this time around, as I can't quite take seriously the player models and the use of the ambient occlusion in the environments. One last thing I can commend this game for, the depth of field is used realistically, thank you God, as where in other games it would just blur the hell out of everything, like you can't see anything. Like IWI the Divine Cybermancy, as crappy as that game was, at least it used DOF right. Thank you, Visceral Games. Now, the review is way shorter than my other ones, and that's because the beta ends on next Thursday, June 26th, 2014, so I needed to get this out there. This is more or less an issue log. The most critical thing I can say about this game is that despite the fact it's in beta, it doesn't feel like a full-priced game. This feels like a piece of add-on content, or maybe even an expansion, or maybe even a graphics mod for Payday the Heist. There's just no way, despite the fact I've logged in many hours in the beta, that I'd pay $60 or $70 for this game. The only way I can get you to understand how underwhelming the urge is to buy this game is to have you play it yourself. With that being said, the sign-up login will be in the description, and I'm not issuing a final score because this is a beta.